Today we're going to open up with our first session on what we're calling, the CEC Water Project. This is an informal term that we have for a project that is funded by the California Energy Commission through the EPIC program. And on this project, UCR was the lead, but we had the strong support and collaboration of 3 water districts. For the first session, we're going to have Pietro Cambriaso speaking on behalf of IUA. As you heard this morning, IUA has taken, a lead in terms of the deployment of innovative technologies and taking action in terms of the relationship between water and energy. So he'll speak to some of the things that have been done through this project. But we're going to start with Michael Todd. Michael Todd is one of our research and development engineers here at CSERT. In fact, Michael, or Mike, as we call him, I just sounded like President Trump. Oh my goodness, right? So Mike, he has been with CSERT for 25 years.
A lot of years.
A lot of years. So in fact, he was one of the very first CSERT personnel. He joined CSERT as an undergraduate student. Over the years, he has managed many different projects. He has a very rich background. First as a chemical and environmental engineer, and over time transitioning more like an electrical engineer, working on intelligent transportation systems, and now renewable energy and energy storage and energy management. Okay, well, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Michael Todd, who will tell us, what the project was about, what is it that UCR did as part of this project, and then he'll pass it on to Pietro.
All right. This project started as a solicitation we responded to the CEC in their EPIC program. And they had some purpose and goals, and they wanted to develop energy efficiency and develop processes for the water industry to improve essentially what we're calling the water energy nexus. And that's part of the reason this panel workshop got created. And we wanted to implement pre-commercial technology. This is technology that's not widely available in the marketplace, and be able to demonstrate that it can help improve energy use within the water sector. And we heard a lot this morning in the opening discussions of why it's important and where we're going. Essentially, this isn't a new problem. This is a problem that's been around for a while, and I'm going to give us some local history of why this region has dealt with this for over 100 years. Essentially, we know in the U.S. that some of the first electrical systems were DC powered, and Edison started on the East Coast with some DC electric systems, and it was determined that it couldn't transmit power long distances, and there was a need learned early on, and it was close to where we are now. So we're physically sitting here, just 20 miles away. The first 3-phase generation deployed in the U.S. was deployed in the Inland Empire region, and it was to power primarily to provide local ice company with a method to create refrigeration for their citrus crops. And this early deployment of AC power 3-phase here was what provided the proof throughout the country that this was the way to go. And the only change from that early grid that was created here locally, it was a 50 hertz grid. Now we're on a 60 hertz grid, but this plant is still in operation today. They've changed out the generators to go from 50 hertz to 60 hertz. But this was, the beginning, or the transition of AC power in the battle between Tesla and Edison back 130 years ago. Now, with this deployment of power, there became a metering issue. So everything that we've been discussing so far today on this water energy nexus, there's a metering issue that has existed for 130 years. And the metering issue was in the US, started with Edison when he deployed electric systems, light bulbs. They were first billed on how much the billing, the revenue that was being generated from that was first on quantity of devices that were plugged in. And so the first metering that got created were kilowatt hour meters. This is basically the total amount of energy that's being used at a facility. And these very early meters, if you look at some, well, the first one was a reaction that affected the weight of a bar. And the more electricity that you use, the lighter that bar got, and they weighed it. But essentially, it evolved into induction metering in the late 1800s. And anyone who's been around meters recognizes these dials. Those dials started 120 years ago. It was just with our recent meters, these meters that we see today, that we've gotten away from those dials. They were on all of our meters up until 120 years ago. That's for kilowatt hours. But as we discussed today, the kilowatt hours isn't our biggest problem. It's demand. It's electrical demand. So electric demand requires a different type of metering. And it started out, also late 1800s. It was mercury being measured, and they would have to read a meter and tilt it. But everyone that's involved in electric metering, it's based on a 15-minute maximum average use of electric demand. And this is it's just becoming time of use related for residential meters, but in the commercial, industrial, large user market, electrical demand's been kind of the largest charge on the electric bill. And this 15-minute demand's been around for about 100 years. I tried to find the reason why 15 minutes, went back in records, we don't know why that 15-minute peak demand. But the utilities base their rate schedules on this peak demand charge, the total kilowatt hours. And one of the simple analogies to think about it is the peak demand is like the speed you're going on the speedometer, short period of time. The kilowatt hour demand, the energy demand, is like the total odometer that's cumulative. And so your bill has those two primary components. This all leads into the purpose of our project that's now towards its end, and our utility agencies have partnered with us on it. We heard this morning about the issues with solar generation, how excess energy is going to become prevalent during daytime peak sun hours. And then when the sun's evening comes along, the sun's no longer producing the solar energy, we have these issues of transitioning to other power sources. And the utilities are responding with a new rate schedule. And the rate schedules, they've traditionally been based on summer, winter season and hours of the day. So the current rate schedules here, we're shifting to this new summer and winter rate schedule. And one of the biggest changes is what's called the super off-peak. That's periods of excess solar generation that we're trying to encourage use. And the on-peak period is this period. You'll notice it's 4 to 9 in the afternoon. That's when we're trying to discourage electrical use, and it's in direct response to this curve. The rate schedules and the metering, all this goes hand in hand because it was the purpose of our project. And this is working with the utilities to create energy management systems that can integrate with the supervisory control and data acquisitions. These are the control systems for their operations. And we wanted to work with these agencies to demonstrate that you can monitor their operations, monitor their energy use, and have them still fulfill the needs of treating water, providing water, maintaining water quality, maintaining the water volumes that are needed, but have some peak energy load reductions at the same time. One of the challenges going into this is the water agencies, they have all these treatment processes, the pumping, whether it's wastewater, potable water, water delivery, all the energy associated with this. Well, it's all being accomplished by equipment that has either proprietary communications or control systems, PLCs, that don't always communicate in the same manner. So, you know, there's a lot of data acquisition, there's a lot of control. Methods had to be created that can communicate with these different systems and then be able to display that energy information back to the operators of the plants. So we said, well, okay, was it successful? Could we do this? And we did. You'll hear from the individual water agencies some of the results. We have examples of reduced demand at facilities. If we look at all the total utility demand in megawatts, or this is actually ends up being 4 to 5 gigawatts of total energy demand, we say, well, what if this was successful throughout the state, what we implemented at these 3 water districts? If we could deploy it statewide, what type of improvements would we see? We're at 1.2 gigawatt potential improvements of reducing these levels, you know, approximately a 25% reduction. And there's a greenhouse gas associated improvement also statewide. But I think what we'll hear from some of the water districts, it's not just a calculated number that we can potentially improve. It's some qualitative improvements in their thought process and how they operate. We had some water agencies that were already doing improvements, like IUA, who had installed solar, wind, biogas, various methods of already implementing renewables. But for other water agencies, they haven't done that yet. They're just starting to think of how to improve energy with their operations and facilities. So, you know, there's some improvement there on the perceptions of how water agencies operate. There's improved reliability. If we can lower the demand in the water sector statewide, then we have some improved reliability. We have utilities that, if they're monitoring their power, and especially at pump level, they can see differences in pump operation and improve their fault monitoring and their facility operations. Traditionally, the utilities looked at their energy use month after the fact when they get the bill. Now, with energy integrated with their operations and their SCADA system, they essentially know what their bill is going to be before they receive it from the utility, and they know what it's costing them at what time of day to operate. What CEC does for their EPIC projects, or a portion of their EPIC projects, they require an independent measurement and verification entity to come in and review the data in the project, review the entities involved and what tasks were completed. And in this project, we had independent measurement and verification go to each of the districts where we deployed. They looked at their operations, they looked at project results, and yeah, I thought I'd put this slide in here because this was what an independent review found and some recommendations potentially for discussion. But we had created, the project led to a display that shows by time of day what period of the rate schedule it was in, peak, off-peak, mid-peak, what the current energy use was relative to historical energy use. So they reviewed this display, they reviewed operations at each of the district locations, and they gave some recommendations. And most of these were informative to, informative information to display for the operators. And we may hear more about these types of implementations, recommendations from the water districts. We heard this 19% number earlier this morning. That's 19% of statewide electrical energy use goes to the water sector. And it's all different parts of the water sector, from water treatment to delivery, distribution, pumping, end uses in businesses and homes. So essentially we're trying to not only improve that number, but manage when that electricity is used through these SCADA integrated systems. So integrated demand side management. So in addition to implementing energy management systems for the utilities, it's also on the customer side of the meter, and the customer has the control or decisions of managing their demand. They're provided the real-time energy use so they can make the best operational decisions for the water treatment process that they have, and that they can then benefit the most on their electric bill. So it's integrated with the supervisory control and data acquisition, and it's all to manage the highest 15-minute peak demand, and it also provides notifications to individual operators at the locations.
Pietro Cambiaso has been an engineer with IUA for over 16 years. Currently, he's the Deputy Manager of Planning and Environmental Resources. He's also responsible for compliance with all federal, state, and local requirements, short and long-term programs regarding water and wastewater facility planning, water resource projects and programs, and energy management. Pietro received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering in 1994 and a master's of science degree in engineering in 2016. Pietro, please come to the front.
Today, I'm going to talk about what lesson learned from IUA, how we are implementing the water energy nexus at IUA. Just for people don't know who we are, IUA is a wholesale distributor of imported water, and we also are a regional wastewater treatment agency. Located on the southwest region of San Bernardino County, we serve the city from Chino Hills all the way to Fontana. We operate 4 major water recycling facilities, 1 solid facility, a composting facility, and a desalter. In addition to imported water and wastewater treatment, we also produce high-quality compost from biosolids, recycled water distribution, and we also produce renewable energy. So the first question even Charlie covered today is why energy management is important for a water agency, and the answer is a cost. At least at IUA, energy is the second largest operational cost in our budget. So we definitely believe that fiscal responsibility is the key driver. So that's what we try to achieve, try to contain costs and make sure we are, provide like a lowest rate available for our customers. We also want to provide operational reliability. We are a wastewater treatment facility, so we want to make sure we are minimizing the dependency from the grid. And one way to achieve that is to having on-site generation. And finally, we are proud to protect the environment, to promote sustainable use of resources, as well enhance our quality, and also to support the state goals. So we want to be part of the solution, help the state to achieve the goal. How we achieve that? Our energy management plan look at three main factors. The first one is to become energy efficient. The second one is to have a diverse portfolio. And the third one is to demand management. In terms of energy efficiency, before starting a new project, what we realized in order to be more efficient and use effectively our resources, it was to understand where the energy was used. So that was possible through the implementation and installation of sub-metering system. We had more than 200 sub-meter agency-wide. We conducted audits to make sure we understand which treatment process is using how much energy. And based on these two studies, we were able to prioritize the efficiency project. So we, over the last few years, we had a VFD installation. We had also pump and blower rehab, thanks also to the SE pump efficiency test. We retrofitted the LED lighting system. It's also very important, by knowing where the energy is used, process optimization, especially the aeration system. That's the largest energy user. With the new sensor, new equipment, we are able to understand better the performance of the plant, and maybe by doing that, minimizing the use of the air and therefore the energy at the facility level. I think also it's very important at the design phase to understand the impact of the energy, not just look at the capital cost of the equipment or selection of a project. By doing that, we actually are able to choose the best or the most cost-effective solution. Example for the sustainable design at the IUA, the headquarters received the Platinum LEED certification in 2004, and recently our water quality lab received a gold certification as well. In terms of energy diversification, the portfolio, we have a combination of on-site generation, and we purchase power from the grid. In terms of on-site generation, agency-wide, I mentioned I got 4 wastewater recycling facility. We have overall 5 megawatt of solar. We have 3 megawatt of internal combustion engine on biogas, 1 megawatt of wind turbine, and the most recent project, as Manal mentioned earlier today, we have overall 4 megawatt of energy storage. In terms of procurement, we actually have a diverse portfolio. We purchase energy both from the IOU, from the SC Edison, and also from the energy service provider. So we're able to get the best price from the market. But I'll mention to you about battery storage. The purpose for IUA to actually enter into agreement with them is to better manage the demand at the site. Advantage of the battery storage is this process is completely automated. Operation doesn't really see any difference. There is no impact to the operation, to the treatment. Everything is automated control. There's real-time tracking of the on-site energy usage. The storage actually can definitely combine and monitor the on-site generation versus the electricity import, and charge or discharge the battery in order to keep the cost down. And with this agreement with the AMS, definitely we also are achieving saving over time. We pay an energy management fee, however, cost savings are guaranteed, so we always are saving from the operation of the storage. I mentioned the energy management plan for IUA. We had engineering back in 2000, I think in the 90s, but over the last 10 years, that's where we actually had this new renewable project. And just want to share with you what problem did we encounter, what kind of the hurdles, the issue we had to address over time. The main one is regulation. Over time, not just air quality regulation, but also water regulation, we may require to have treatment in place that will meet a more stringent emission limit. They may require additional energy usage. So the goal to be reliable or independent from the grid, it becomes more and more difficult if we need to, let's say, advanced water treatment or UV. Energy market is definitely a big question mark, and it's the driver. So when we installed solar at the beginning, the cost of the utility was like close to 13 cents. With the natural gas sale price going down, this cost is going down. So when we have a project in place, we need to make sure we understand also how the market evolves and how it's going to affect the implementation of the project. Funding is also it's a big problem. We try to address that by having a power purchase agreement or a public-private partnership in order to make sure we have funding to implement this project. It may have a longer return on investment. Critical element, especially for energy project, is the interconnection to the grid. Sometime interconnected to the grid may actually delay the project, can affect the size of the project if we try to prevent the electricity to be exported back to the grid. And if it does, if it's allowed to do that, sometimes it requires additional equipment, like a ground bank or additional monitoring. So I see that as a major issue that actually has delayed in the past most of the project at IUA.
Could
Sure.
you comment a bit on the incentives to export and why the reason is to
It's an issue?
disincentivize exporting energy, is that right?
So yes, it depends. At least in the Southern California Edison service area, one of the programs is the net energy metering. So you're allowed to export to the grid, and you get the full value of the electricity at the time you export. This is sunsetting now, and with a new rule, and is as a grandfather only for 10 years for solar. Some of the on-site generation that IUA had in the past, like a fuel cell, was not eligible for those type of incentive, for those type of exports. So we had to actually make sure that we will never export to the grid because it was not cost effective. There's also other type of agreement like with the RES-BCT, which actually you get kind of virtual metering. You can export to the grid, but the value of the energy goes to other facility that you own. But SE only gives the customer the generation value, but not the entire value. So if you have a 12 cents per kilowatt hour average cost, when you export to the grid, you only get 6 cents. So this definitely play an important role when sizing your equipment, when selecting your on-site generation. So it has to be evaluated. That's why I even think like the energy storage could be a solution, because by having something on site that you can actually store the renewable, you prevent from export, and then you'll be able to use it later in during the day as needed. How we overcome the hurdle, how we can in the future. I think the big element is a state agency, local agency. I think the goal is to have work together and understand have the same goal. Like I'm thinking today that the organic recycle, Car Recycle is working now with the AQMD, with the carbs. It is important that all the state agencies, the local agency work together for a common goal to make sure that there's no conflicting goal that could actually maybe disincentivize the implementation of a project. Issue we see also in terms of proven technologies. I mentioned earlier about fuel cell. IUA has a experience with a fuel cell. We were one of the first to use it on biogas. It was not a good experience, but it is important to share this issue with with our agency to make sure everybody understand, and going back to the developer to make sure they understand and improve their equipment. Financing and funding. I talked about the public-private partnership as well. There's a lot of financing through the state or grants available. I think the bigger one in California, the Self-Generation Incentive Program. that now has shifted more of the funding to the energy storage. Originally, it was more on the site generation, now it's more on the storage side. And definitely permitting, it's a big issue, sometimes can delay the project. And events like this, I think in terms of sharing knowledge, it's how different agencies can get together to share information to make sure that everybody learns from their own experience. We mentioned earlier about the demand management and the cost. Even Mike talked about the rate structure for Edison. So the goal of the project, the IUA and UCR worked together since 2015. It was try to manage the demand load at Carbon Canyon, which is the facility there on the image, and to make sure we were able to minimize the demand on site and therefore to provide some cost savings. Carbon Canyon is a 12 MBGD, million gallons per day facility. It's traditional wastewater treatment. We also have a recycled water pump station with 5 300 horsepower pumps that feed the recycled water, Title 22 recycled water, to the distribution system. As I mentioned earlier, we had some metering at the equipment level, at the pump, so we know exactly where the energy was used on site. However, this system, it didn't reside in SCADA. It was on a web-based system, which was not really available, or at least the operator didn't see it as efficient. So what UCR is recommended is to integrate, first of all, to develop an energy monitoring and management system strategy and integrate in SCADA and provide operator real-time information, allowing them to make an informed decision. An informed decision was to either shut down equipment or reducing the flow from the pump in order to provide cost saving to the agency. So what UCR developed, it's a screen with an EMS that would provide a real-time information in terms of the on-site electricity use from the grid. At the same time, they would calculate the 15-minute average and compare it to the historical peak demand for the same billing cycle. As I thought Mike mentioned earlier, usually when we were going to check the bills was after the fact. It was after we received the billing. We just figured out why the demand charge was so high, what happened during the day. But having this information, at the fingertip of the operator, it would definitely provide at least an option to make an informed decision. If the on-site real-time electricity was getting close to the peak demand for the same billing cycle, then the operator would be notified through an alert, an alarm, and by logging on, we'll be able to see what was the trend, how many pumps were running, and decide to shut it down or continue what they're doing if the customer needed that water at that time. So I thought this was a very interesting process because it at least provided operation the information, and definitely there was no disruption to operation because the system will not shut down any pumps. Everything was going to the operator to make the decision. And this is kind of the chart, the screen that was integrated into SCADA for that project. The entire project was validated. The data were validated between the SCADA and the SCE revenue meter. Operator provided feedback. One of the issues, I think it was at the beginning, the billing cycle, they were receiving too many alerts because they were always exceeding the max demand for the time. So there was a lot of back and forth communication between UCR and IUA. But I definitely believe this is an excellent, good project. This project was, I think the concept came in 2015, which was before IUA had the energy storage in place. So now definitely the energy storage provide kind of similar type of service without any operational intervention. However, if we have a agency that may be a remote location when the storage is not cost effective, something like that definitely provide a good way to minimize the cost.